Hello, Jeffrey Martin here, Director of the Center for the Study of Non-Symbolic Consciousness and a research professor and Director of the Transformative Technology Lab at Sophia University in Palo Alto, California, the very heart of Silicon Valley, where we research how to help people go from seeking to finding and from finding to exploring so that you can live your most powerful and purposeful life. I get a lot of questions about what the actual benefits are for things like non-duality, persistent mystical experience, enlightenment, transcendental consciousness, God consciousness, unitive consciousness, all sorts of things. Now, for those of you that don't know, we call those things Persistent Non-Symbolic Experience, or PNSE, and it's actually not those things, it's the heart of those things. We've spent 10 years of scientific research really trying to get down to the middle of all of it. And we all owe a huge debt to the systems and religions, spiritual systems, the philosophies, the psychological systems that have carried all of these things forward across human culture. But now we're at a point where we can look across them all and we can ask ourselves, okay, what did all those guys add on to this, right? What was added in by this religion and this system and that system and this philosophy and that philosophy? And can we get down to the core of it? And we've been incredibly successful over the last 10 years at doing that. We've been able to not only I think really very powerfully get to the core of it, but validate that we got to the core of it. In recent years, we've been transitioning a majority of people who use our research protocol to ongoing and persistent forms of non-symbolic experience in between 1 week and basically around 15 weeks or so. So we have seen, literally thousands of people around the world who have persistent non-symbolic experience and done a lot of intensive research with just tons of folks, lots of cultures, the whole bit, basically as wide a net as we could cast. And in recent years, we've been able to see who someone was before and after persistent non-symbolic experience, as well as during the transition to it. So our vantage point has been fantastic to help you answer this question of what are the benefits of this thing. Most people are living with what they call the problem of the human condition. And it's a very serious thing. It basically refers to the fact that at the base level of our psychology, we find things like fear and worry and anxiety and a sense of scarcity, that there's not enough to go around. And you know what? These things make absolute sense from the standpoint of evolution. 10,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, so on and so forth. Yeah, you could starve before you found the next berry bush if you were born in the wrong part of the world, right? Or some sort of disaster could happen that could take out your food supply for years. So scarcity is a very real thing for the human race for most of its existence. What about safety? Well, we were pretty far from the top of the food chain for most of the time that our genome was developing, right? And so I don't think it's very surprising that we have this sort of fear at the very deepest levels of our psychology, that we're always sort of worried that we're not safe, that things aren't quite right. There's this fundamental sense that things aren't quite right. And I got to keep looking around, try to figure out what's wrong. Where might my threat be coming from? These days our threats are in offices from the person in the next cube, not from tigers who are trying to eat us, right? But we've mapped these processes, they're still in us, and so we've mapped it over to the coworker in our next cubicle, rather than, what it was originally designed for, which was to really keep us safe from genuine predators and stuff like that. The reality is that most of us are living relatively safe lives. I think we're living very safe lives. I mean, you worried about somebody killing you right now? I'm not. You worried about a wild animal eating you right now? I'm not. So realistically, why should your psychology have you looking around like this? Why should you feel like, something's wrong. I got to figure it out. I got to figure out what's wrong. What's wrong? I'm under threat. I know I'm under threat. Somehow I'm under threat. How am I under threat, right? Let's look at this another direction. Are you worried about starving? Probably not. In fact, you're probably experiencing the exact opposite, right? You're, maybe near your computer right now is a candy bar or some other very tempting food, and you're like, nope, not gonna. Right? I mean, let's face it, we're trying to cut down on calories, not figure out how we can find some more calories to have in our diet. So this human condition, this sort of problem of the human condition, quote unquote, that's at the core of our psychology, it's basically just an outdated operating system, and it was fantastic for most of human existence. But today, if you're living in a developed country, and you're basically okay. Life is basically okay. And that's what you get with a shift to persistent non-symbolic experience. You get a shift in your baseline psychological experience that takes you from a sense that something's not right, or there's this scarcity, I've just got to keep, 10 cars aren't enough, I need 30 cars, right? Or whatever it is, right? You just got to keep collecting. Well, there's two of us, me and my spouse, and I feel like I need 12 rooms in the house, 12 bedrooms, each with their own bathroom. Can't explain why, just feel like I need that, right? There's this sense of scarcity. So that changes entirely with the transition to persistent non-symbolic experience. And instead, you find yourself content, really. Now, listen, I don't want you to hear in this that you're not able to deal with life. You're incredibly effective at dealing with life. So it's not a situation where you're feeling so okay about the present moment that if somebody's standing there holding a gun, pointing it at you, that you're like, oh, everything is so great. Look at that guy, he's got a gun. Oh, he might shoot me, right? None of that. You're totally in the moment. You're totally able to react in an optimal way, probably a far more optimal way than if you aren't in persistent non-symbolic experience. And so it's really a remarkable way to live your life. Let's talk about some of the other things real quick. There's a huge change in your thoughts. People often say, oh, my thoughts went away. Well, all your thoughts don't go away. But your thoughts often are lessened that are self-referential thoughts, that are thoughts about you, right? Which are often the bad thoughts. If I were to take all of the thoughts that roll through your head about you over the course of a day, and I were to transplant them into another person, and I were to put both of you in an elevator, and then I were to turn off the power, and I were to do that for hours, does that sound like a scenario that's desirable to you? I bet it doesn't. And I bet it's because you know that those self-related thoughts that pour through your head are often not very nice thoughts. You're not very nice to yourself. And here's a little secret for you. It's pretty much true for everybody. So it's not, I know you've been talking to other people about that, not telling other people about that. It's your secret because everybody else must have happy thoughts, right? Not so much. So the good news is that those self-referential thoughts are substantially diminished. They might go away entirely. At the very least, they lose their power. They lose the vast majority of their power over you. They don't cause the mood swings. They don't drive your emotions. You also have a change in emotions. You might have a shift to a fully positive way of experiencing the world emotionally. You might, at the very least, you're going to have negative emotions falling off much more rapidly when they do occur. Sounding good so far? Guess what happens when you don't have a bunch of bad thoughts about yourself clogging up your head? Turns out your brain is actually pretty smart. And it can do all kinds of other problem solving and all sorts of other things for you. So you wind up finding yourself being really super effective in ways that you never imagined before, maybe. You have a sense oftentimes of a greater flow in your life, of things just sort of going along with more flow. There's so many benefits that we can talk about that are associated with this. It really forms together into a composite that's a truly remarkable place to live life from. And it's a very capable place to live life from. So if you're interested in this, and you must be interested in it in some way in order to be watching this video, let me first of all applaud you and celebrate you, because there aren't that many people who have even found this, who even know about this. So you're in a very, very rare group of people, and I hope that you're considering actually going in this direction and trying to reach this, because it's an absolutely fantastic place to experience life from. And not only is it tremendously beneficial for you, but it's beneficial for those around you. And, those of us who are fortunate enough to experience this in some way often feel that it really is fortunate for the entire planet. That the more people who can experience this, the more likely we are to get around some of these thorny situations that we experience that's out there right now in the world. All of the conflict, I think it would lead to dramatically reduced conflict. It certainly does in your own life. And so there's a reduction in conflict. There's a reduction in consumption. And, we're sort of consuming ourselves out of a planet here in some sense. And so, the reductions in consumption, it's hard to see that as anything but beneficial. Now you might be saying to yourself, what do you mean reductions in consumption? Well, listen, if I don't have to buy that 12th car in order to feel like I'm complete, right? And then, of course, when I buy the 12th car, I'll need the 13th one, because that's never going to do it, right? It's me looking in the wrong direction for any sense of satisfaction or completeness. But, it's that consumption treadmill. That where you're always trying to add another thing to yourself, add another thing to your life, hoping that'll be the thing that does it, but it never is, because that's looking in the wrong direction. And PNSE is really looking in the right direction for this. So there's these huge changes, I think, that can radiate out and powerfully impact and affect the world. I'm so excited that you're looking in this direction. Maybe you've been a long-time seeker. Maybe you're someone who's been trying to get there for a long time. I would definitely encourage you to investigate our work. We have a lot of people use the Finder's Course protocol who fell into that situation. We've also had a lot of people use the Finder's Course protocol that were the exact opposite, that never did anything. It was literally the first thing that they ever tried in the direction of PNSE. And, it worked beautifully for them. So regardless of who you are, I really just want to encourage you, we're living in times when you can get there. This isn't 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. This is post-internet. There's all kinds of people out there sharing their war stories around this. And they're often not war stories. They're often like, love stories or whatever. There's all sorts of information out there that you can use to help you get there quickly, safely, reliably. You have to basically find a method that works for you and do it. That's pretty much it. Tough, huh? Well, finding the method can be a little tough. You might have to look through a bunch before you do. We have other videos that you can see that talk about that, so I'm not going to go into that there. But the bottom line is it's really completely possible for you to have a transition in a short period of time. Over 70% of people in our experiments reach it in less than 4 months. 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, that would have seemed impossible. And we think that we're only going to be accelerating that with the use of technologies and things like that. And as we get more data and more people keep coming through it and we can refine it more, we think that even right now at 4 months, it's hugely inefficient. There's probably a button out there that you can press that we hope to be able to get to that can get you there, right? But bottom line is right now, this doesn't take the rest of your life. This doesn't, there aren't a lot of costs associated with this like there have been in the past. You don't have to go to some monastery and sequester yourself for decades in order to reach this. There's people reaching it every day, at every age, every part of the demographic spectrum, and you can be one of them. And you're way ahead of them because you found this video, you found other videos like this. You're already heading in this direction. So I really celebrate you. I honor you. I'm so grateful for you. The world needs more of us. And, I hope that this video has been of service to you. We have lots of other stuff. We've been researching this stuff for 10 years. There's lots of stuff that we share. So I hope you'll take advantage of those, in addition to all the other amazing stuff that's out there really in every direction online these days.